from Journey to the Organised Home. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm on a journey to a more organised home and life, and I'm here to share all of the best tried and tested tips with you so that you can have a more organised home and life too. In today's video, I'm going to be counting down the 6 best tips and tricks. Yes, 6 because I had 5, but I just had to give you one more. 6 best tips and tricks to keep your houseplants alive for real this time. Now, I've sadly lost a lot of houseplants, and trust me, I figured these tips and tricks out the hard way. So here are the 6 best tips and tricks to keep your little plant buddies thriving. So tip number 6 is going to be don't skimp on the potting mix. When you're planting an indoor plant, you want to make sure that you're using the best quality potting mix that you can. Now, I really like to add a little bit of perlite and a little bit of activated charcoal and mix this through the soil just to aerate it, loosen it up, and to stop compaction. And it also puts nutrients into the soil as well. So if you're trying to save money on something else. Don't skimp out on the potting mix. So tip number 5 is going to be to get a white oil, which is a pest oil spray, and also a leaf shine for indoor plants. Now, this works really well for a number of different indoor pests, and if you have it on hand, then when you notice the first sign of pests, you can use it straight away. Now, one tip I would say definitely with the white oil is to don't use it and then put your plants in direct sunlight, because you will fry them. So tip number 4 is going to be to rotate your plants where they are so that they get an even distribution of sunlight on all sides of the plant. So like you'll see here with my Chinese money plant, I neglected this plant and I just let it sit near the window and didn't rotate it for a long time. And now you can see the trunk is totally bent from where it was reaching towards the light. So if you rotate your plants, it'll keep the stems growing really nice and straight, and it'll make your plant nice and healthy because all of the sun is going to be distributed evenly across all of the leaves on all of the surfaces. When you're rotating your plants as well, make sure that the leaves are actually nice and clean. If the leaves have too much dust build up on them, they won't be able to absorb the light from the sun properly. So while you're rotating, always make sure that your leaves are nice and clean as well. Give them a wipe with a cloth, or you can always use the white oil spray to give them a little bit of a shine. So tip number 3 is going to be to water your plants with rainwater if possible. So we have a rainwater tank at our house, so when I water the indoor plants, I make sure to use the rainwater because it just makes it feel a little bit more natural for the plants. I just feel like there's more nutrients in there. It's just more natural than using tap water, which for us in Canberra is chlorinated and has fluoride and like all this added stuff in it as well. If you can't use rainwater, I would suggest doing a little bit of a hack, which is to use your spent cooking water. So you can use cooking water from potatoes, eggs, vegetables, and pasta once it's cooled down to water your plants. So this just puts some essential nutrients back in the soil, and it's good because it gives it like a more regular boost of nutrients, so you don't have to fertilize quite as often. And when you are watering your plants as well, just make sure obviously that the water is completely cooled down because you don't want to burn your plant's roots. Also, just scratch the top of the soil so that you're aerating the soil at the same time, and to try to avoid the compaction at the top of the plant. Tip number 2 is going to be understand what it means when they say bright indirect light. Now, I feel like this is on every single plant label of every single indoor pot that you buy. So really understanding what they mean when they say bright indirect light is really important. And there's a little bit of a hack that you can use to make sure your plant is getting the right amount of light that it needs. So when you have bright indirect light, you should be able to see a shadow on the wall behind the plant, but the shadow should be slightly blurred and indistinct. So if you have a plant that is in direct light, it'll have a really strong, clearly defined shadow. And if you have a plant that is in really low light, you will hardly be able to see the shadow cast behind the plant at all. So this is a little bit of a rule of thumb when figuring out what is exactly bright indirect light in your home. And the other tip when considering light is that even if you do have your plant in a place that it should be doing well, but it's not, don't just keep it there and keep pushing shit uphill. Just get the plant, move it to a different spot, keep everything else the same, and see how things improve or if they deteriorate even further. So sometimes you just have to find the right spot for your plant, and once it's there and it's happy, just keep it there, even if it's not where you intended it to be. You can't always decide where a plant's going to be happiest, so just let the plant live where it was. So my number 1 tip for indoor plant care is going to be get a soil meter. So a soil meter is something that you can use to measure the wetness of your soil, basically. So sometimes they call it a moisture meter. The one I have is a soil meter because it does light, pH, and moisture in the soil. I only ever really use it for moisture though. It's not always going to be 100% accurate, but it does give you an indication of if the bottom of your plants are still wet while the top is dry. Now, you'll commonly see a tip for watering houseplants is going to be water when the top 1 to 2 inches of soil is dry. Now, if I did this, I would be constantly overwatering all of my plants, because using a soil meter, you can really see that the soil below the top 2 inches of soil really does maintain moisture a lot longer than the top 2 inches. And a lot of plants do a lot better with less watering than overwatering. So my method now for watering almost all of my indoor plants is to use the moisture meter to figure out when the soil is actually getting dry towards the bottom of the soil, and then taking the plant outside and watering the whole thing, giving it a really good soak once every 3 to 4 weeks for the bigger plants. So basically doing this, you are allowing the plant to dry out completely between watering so that you avoid overwatering your plants. And if you make sure that you mix in a good amount of aerating mixture into your soil, this will also help with overwatering. Now, the reason why this tip is number 1 on this list is because overwatering is the number 1 problem in why people are always killing their houseplants. And so people kill with kindness more often than they kill with neglect. And you'll be surprised that leaving your houseplants without watering, they can usually do pretty fine for quite a while before you start to notice signs of them having a little bit droopy leaves or not doing so well generally. And this can usually be fairly easily fixed by just giving them a little bit of water. So use this soil meter so that you don't overwater your plants. So guys, that's my quick and easy tips and tricks that you can use to get your plant buddies looking really nice and healthy indoors, even if you're a beginner. This is just totally basic knowledge, but it's not something that everybody knows. And I promise if you put all of these tips into use together, your plant buddies will absolutely thank you for it. Thank you so much for watching, guys. If you've watched a couple of my videos and you haven't subscribed yet, please consider subscribing. If you like this video, please give it a like just so I know what sort of content you guys enjoy. And as always, thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.